And if you can just, where it comes in too far, I just push it into the center. And when it's perfectly centered, I'll have constant, consistent contact with my finger that's up against the pot here. And again, this all goes back to centering your clay in the beginning. If it's all centered and consistent wall thicknesses, it all leads up to the final product. So we're centered. I'm just going to secure that around the edges with some wet clay. Just some coils. Okay, now we're ready to start trimming. I'm going to put you up here. Maybe this will be a better view for you. Is that better? Yeah? Okay. Here we've got some trimming tools. We're just going to discover where our foot needs to be. And right there for now. And you can see we're removing quite an excess of clay, but by leaving all this in the first place, it gave us this opportunity for a nice tall foot. And if you just throw all the way to the bottom, you have this flat base, and you have no feet. So you don't have to have a foot either, but it's like a sculpture in a museum. 9 times out of 10, or 99 times out of 100, that sculpture is going to be on a pedestal. It just elevates it off of the ground plane, accentuates the form. Again, that foot is the meeting place between the form and the ground plane. And it further defines a piece of pottery as a finished work. It, it reiterates that, this is clay. It did come from the ground. And it has a pot, it has a foot, and by having a foot, it further establishes that refinement and that finished product of where now this pot can officially say, I am an altered form. I am different than what I was when I came out of the ground. I stand above it. I rest on top of it. I am a flower pot. Basically is what is going on here. So and I have eyeballed how much to take out, but I'll tell you, this is a very common place to lose an entire amount of work that you just did by poking all the way through. And I'll show you how we're going to combat that. Switch over to it. Basically, at some point I'm going to need to take this pot off of the throwing wheel and check it with the needle tool to see if I have enough. And again, recenter it. This is also my next to last opportunity to smooth up this surface. When it does completely dry, I can take an abrasive surface to it and smooth it out, but I don't want to do that because you're putting clay dust into the atmosphere. And when this stuff is dry, it's like any other particulate. Only it's finer than any dirt you'll find. It's finer than any dust. It definitely is small enough to slip through all your sinus defenses. So as much as you can work on the clay when it's wet, the better off you are. And again, when it dries out, it's so fragile that you don't want to be picking this thing up and taking a sanding block to it. So a lot of times I can press down or just simply knock on it and know how deep I am into it. I know I still have half an inch right in here in this spot, just by the amount it's like pushing down on a bed. There's a point where the clay will move just so slightly when you push down on it with your finger. And that's what we're looking for. All these trimmings that you see is what I put back into the reclaim, which is what I took out to actually make this pot. So this pot right here is made out of this stuff from previous pots. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing to think about. You can form this stuff and reform it and reform it and reform it. It just wants to be used and used and used until you add a lot of heat and you actually melt the glass. There's glass that is in this clay. Tiny, tiny fragments of silica and other elements that also melt and meld together, that once there's enough heat added to these things, they're changed forever. Or at least tens of millions of years. Whatever you want to consider forever to be. So I'm going to lift this up, check it with my hands. I already know I can go in there and get some more. See how close I'm getting. This could very well be the last actual manipulation of the form. So I do want to take my time, and I do want to do whatever is necessary to completely finish this form. This is not the time to start rushing. You know, if you want to there's really no point in rushing at any point along the line, because it's going to come back to bite you. You know, if I would have rushed the wedging job, I'd have a big old bulge right here. If I would have rushed the throwing, this would all be lopsided and my hand would be doing this and I'd have a bad trimming job. So at no point, including this one, do you ever want to just rush through making a pot willy-nilly. Just take your time, eyeball it, feel it. Don't get in a hurry. But I do need to check on see what time it is because I do have to go to work. Yeah. Well, anyway, I've got to get to work. So I'm just going to leave this as is, but I'm going to put a bag over it. Again, I don't want it to dry too fast. If it dries too fast, cracks will develop. It needs to dry evenly. So, just trap some of the humidity in there. Give it a nice environment that doesn't have any drafts in it. And I will see you in about 8 hours. There's River. Hey, River. Say hi to the camera. Smile. He's a little camera shy. Good boy. River's a good boy, yeah. Okay. Back from work. There's River. And, where were we? Oh yeah. We're gonna lift this up. Hey, buddy. Lift this pot up off the wheel. And check for thickness. See how much trimming we need to come back and do. Feels a bit heavy still. There's still a lot of moisture. How's it? Pretty thick around the foot. Pretty thick still. I could probably reduce some more. Just all around the foot. So we'll center it up here. And we're going to try to get by without using any of these little clay holders. Might need them, might not.